Hello, everybody. We're going to try to get started within 10 minutes. We're just waiting for a few people. So we'll get started at 6:30. So fix ready, and we'll talk. For you?
There we go. You didn't have. I didn't start.
I'll have the other side. So by the time eating time tomorrow. Oh, yeah. I heard you guys think. Yeah. Grateful that there's a
Here, come eat. Is Jill sitting up here? Or should I say her seat over there? Oh, she is up here.
Jill and Bobby. So I'm just going to I see my sitting up there. I would sit Bobby, even Jill. I said, let's hope nobody puts their. I can't see everybody. No.
send out your thing, and we're gonna read the questions we would have asked them, and we're gonna ask you to send us 3 questions, okay? Because we are gonna send it to them, and they are gonna answer them, and we'll send that information out to you.
You want us to send the questions to you, or?
Well, you could, you could write it down and just send it later at the end. Okay?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
but we can access the mic, right?
If you want, yeah. So I assume all you people standing close to the mic are gonna be jumping up there, right? Okay, last thing before I give it over to Joe. Because we have some directors here, especially regional directors, I've asked all of them. Vince couldn't make it today, but Joe was a regional director for the North, and he was also VP of Policy and Governance in the past. Ranji's our current regional director. I would ask each of them to stand up and give a pitch and guidance to those running for the board. Just give them 5 minutes.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Mr. Moorhead, for doing this. I was actually at the one last year, and I had a blast. This is so great for the candidates to come out and get to tell you guys about themselves firsthand. So you don't have to listen to anybody else when you vote. This is where you find out who they are, what they do, and what they stand for, and how much they can help the UCP party. Both these candidates are great. I'm looking forward to this. Thank you very much. Anything for me, you guys can meet me afterwards. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, guys.
And then I'll give it to you.
Good evening, everybody. So I guess I might start. So I'm no longer on the board, but I was on there during the period of time with COVID and the leadership review. So it was a piece of cake. We had no problems. We did. So I guess in terms of the job, I just want to spend a couple seconds talking about the job of the regional directors. It's great to see both of your local regional directors who are running here, because one of the most important things is being present in the community. Pretty straightforward, although not easy for a place like Edmonton, because you can actually reasonably make it to all the different meetings. And I'm sure that whoever wins will go to every single constituency association meeting across Edmonton. Of course, that's not possible, but it's important that there's regular contacts, that the people on the boards basically have access to that information. The other thing that I think is really important on the board is focus on relationships with other members of the board. So I think one of the things that I would look for from a candidate is, how well do you work with new friends? One of the challenges, and I don't know if you had the same one going to the board, I was relatively new to the people there. And so what I learned was I really need to build those relationships so people take you seriously. And when you're having one of these hard conversations about when you're going to have a leadership review, how many hours are you going to dedicate to the plenary at the AGM, all the boring stuff, it's really important that people trust you and that they understand where you're coming from and that you have that good rapport so you can get difficult decisions done. So those are the things that I would look for from these regional directors. I guess that's probably my full set of comments. I won't speak to President or VP of Policy or anything like that, because they're all not here today, but thanks very much. Now I'm putting on my other hat as moderator. So now that we've talked about what I would do in terms of voting for these guys, we'll have them speak for themselves, I guess. So I have, pardon me. I have 4 questions that I'll be asking, and then we're going to get 3 questions, is it, from the floor? We're going to start off with a 60-second opening statement from both candidates, and then I will get into my questions, and you will have 45 seconds each to answer those. And then we will have 3 questions from the floor, and you'll have 45 seconds to answer both of those as well. So with that, I'm going to give we have not determined who should be the first to speak. So I'm going to pick alphabetical order. And so with that, I'm going to give the floor first to Jill. Forgive me if I mispronounce it. Dido. Jill Dido will be the first to give her opening statement. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces in the room. I was told I had 1 minute, so I'm going to get going. And now we don't have any other speakers. So. But I like to start out with a quote that is one of my favorites. It says, "People often say with pride, I'm not interested in politics. They might as well say I'm not interested in my standard of living, my health, my job, my rights, my freedoms, my future, or any future. And if we mean to keep any control over our world and our lives, we must be interested in politics." Now, that was a quote from an incredible lady back in 1908. So I figure that if she could come up with something like that in 1908, it certainly, I can step forward in 2024. Last year at the AGM, I had this book in my hands with the yes red card and the green no card. And I felt an honor to be at the AGM and shaping what I believed was the direction for our party. And later, when I was asked if I would let my name stand for Edmonton director, I said that yes, I would do that. I was bit by the bug, let's say. I'm now retired, but I worked in not-for-profit all my life. I understand board meetings, policies, strategic planning, volunteerism, all of those things that go along with this role. And as your Edmonton director, I will use the above skills to work to turn our city blue. I currently sit on my Glenora Association, and in addition to our province, I also want our city to prosper and thrive, and that happens with a UCP government. So we need a province that is strong and free, and that is what I will work towards to make our province strong and free. Thank you.
Very much. And now I give the floor to Bobby Menard for her opening statement.
Good evening, everyone. I too, like Jill, see many familiar and friendly faces. I am so delighted to see you all here. Having volunteered for the party for the last few years, I just am so encouraged that there are so many folks who believe in one of our core conservative values, and that's community. I actually think the community is a superpower for the Conservative Party, and that with folks like you in this room, we can reach out and we can turn Edmonton blue. I am a political organizer. I have run campaigns, most recently for Minister Cyril Turton. And I am just so encouraged that it's not just the data and the tactics, but the values that bring us together that will enable us to support our boards, to build the relationships we need, and to reach out into Alberta and create a conservative future for our children and leave a legacy that is lasting and meaningful, where we can build an organization where everyone gets their voice, where the grassroots are heard, and our very best, most service-oriented folks who are our MLAs have the strength and the opportunity to go out and make transformational change and ensure that Alberta is strong and free and the Alberta advantage are real for generations to come.
Thank you very much. Okay, so our first question is a really simple and uncontroversial one. Leadership review is up at this year's AGM. Tell us whether you support Daniel Smith as leader or not, and why. Yikes. The floor is yours.
100% I support. Oh, I have to go there again?
Yeah, and one support, one of us is going to trip. And yeah.
So 100% I support our premier. I was rooting for her right from the beginning. I think she's a beautiful, amazing woman. I think she's done amazing things for our province. I think that the challenges that she had to overcome certainly do not deserve us cutting her short after just a couple of years. She has had so much to deal with AHS and with fighting our prime minister. And when I talk about her to people, I say, if there was a cartoon drawn, it would be like this of our premier going along and kicking at all of the people who are trying to drag her down. I think we go there with a resounding yes. I really think our premier is the best we have, and I support her 100%. Thanks.
Same question to Bobby. Thank you.
I would love to say yes and just go back and sit down because I absolutely agree with Joe. We don't back away from a leader who's winning, and she is absolutely doing that. It is foolish beyond all reason for us to look at all of the things we've accomplished and all of the opportunities we have created as a province and say, hey, things take time, so that's made me upset. I genuinely think that this is a moment where we, the party underneath this leader, can come together, continue to build, and show the rest of the country exactly what is possible when we get to work. So 100%, yes.
Thank you very much. Question number 2. On a scale of 1 to 10, please rate your assessment of the relationship between the Edmonton CAs and the provincial board. Then give 2 goals you plan to be accountable for, even informally, to change this metric.
Well, I would say maybe 2 or 3. I've met with, quite a few of the CAs now, and I can see that there's some challenges, let's say, to what's been happening. And I think a lot of that came from maybe perhaps the previous person where they weren't as, I'm trying to be politically correct here. Isn't that weird to be in a room trying to be politically correct? I don't know that the rumblings I had heard was, perhaps that Premier Kenny didn't really want to work with the CAs, and I think that sort of filtered down, but that's not the way we need it to be. One of the things that I've said, working in not-for-profit all my life, I realized that a successful board is a successful organization. And we've got 2 boards. We need to be successful, the actual UCP board and then all of the CA boards. And so one of the things that, I understand, like there's small ones and there's big ones and there's rich ones and there's poor ones. And my goal would be to meet with each one of them and sit down and find out what their challenges are and what their strengths are and how we can work to get that stronger and better. And secondly, to work very strongly with the association board. And I want to be the voice of our CAs in Edmonton at that table. So thank you.
That went a little bit longer than 45 seconds, which is totally fine because it's a giant question. I kind of let you go with it. I'm going to give a little bit more time to our opponent here for fairness. So if you've been counting yourself and seeing that it's gone longer than 45 seconds, we're not being unfair to one versus the other.
That's right. Where else are you going to be? There's no others game.
There's no
team. I'm fucked out, I guess.
So I think one of the most interesting things about our party is that how do we enable the grassroots and how do we get the grassroots to be heard at the provincial table, and how do we translate that into a passionate, coherent movement where we can have passionate disagreements and even better agreements. And so one of the things that my goal is, quite honestly, is to ensure that people are heard. And I genuinely will be reaching out on something that's a little bit different on a quarterly basis with a consistent survey to every member of our boards, because those folks who show up on a monthly basis in large ways and small ways, it's tough because our board presidents, I don't know if you're aware of this, they have a monthly meeting with Mr. Rob Smith and the premiers there, and there's 87 of them. But what we don't have right now is the 30 people per board on 20 boards in Edmonton and their knowledge in one place and one time. So one of my goals is to create a quarterly survey, which sounds just so both simple and boring and yet very, very powerful, because we need to assemble that knowledge and honor that knowledge and move the grassroots folks who serve on our CAs into a position where they can be heard. And I will passionately advocate for what they say they see in their communities with the members in their CAs. And that knowledge needs to be the first step towards building. So that is one of my goals. And the second goal that I have is, well, you know what? I have hosted hundreds of events in my life. Way back in my biography, I was the Director of Marketing Communications at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. And I honestly believe that I can sincerely bring forward those skills and those experiences and enable our CAs to have the types of events that there's nothing worse when you're sitting there and you're looking at a blank screen or you're looking at a blank calendar and saying, what next? I've been paid to answer that question in my professional life, and I just think it would be one of the loveliest acts of service I could give to work with our CAs to do that. So I'd like us to have more events and see our CAs come together so that we can show how community is built and behave that together.
Thank you very much. This question as well is going to take some time to answer, so don't feel too compressed. I'll time you both. Question number 3, and I'm going to give this to Bobby first, just to switch it up. Define your role in supporting CA election readiness in the Edmonton region. What are 3 actions our CAs can expect to see from you in the next 2 years to support them in the goal of increasing the vote and MLA count?
So as someone who has run a campaign on a paid basis, I want to say something that's going to be very disconcerting to some of you in this room. You can expect to spend $100,000 in every single riding at the grassroots in order to be competitive in Edmonton. That's $2 million throughout the city. It's going to be a legitimately giant challenge. And we, for a very long time, have looked at our membership and said, $5 here, $5 here. How about another 5? How about another 5? And I think we meet that challenge by moving away from the constant transaction of $5 and showing people how we can take our resources, not just from our fundraisers and from our donors, but match them with time and building the skills inside our volunteers, because we will need time with our volunteers as well as time on the calendar to build the awareness and the data that we need to be successful. We're headed into what is going to be the first AI-assisted data election in history. We have to have relationship to overcome that. We're not, the fire race for data and AI is going to only be overcome with relationship and with our values. So the things I would like to help CRCAs work with is some things that aren't so much fun: door knocking, issues development, community engagement, as well as figuring out how we can legitimately put together cohesive CAs with enough funding to compete.
That was a 2 or 3 prong question, but so election readiness. I read the report that was done afterwards, and I saw a lot of things in that were there was this CA was going to be the winner, and so funds were put towards that CA, but then it didn't turn out, and then some CAs didn't get any funding. They sort of went a little bit further. And I think that this time it's going to be different, because we're going to be coming from a point of a very incredible leader in Danielle. I think we're going to have a lot, maybe a bit more of a horse behind us, if I could say. I think a lot of people were really pissed off at the Conservatives, and that caused some problems in getting things going. I know in my area, they parachuted somebody in at the 11th hour. So I think the election readiness is maybe going to take a little bit of a different approach this year, or this time around, in the sense of how we go about it. I think there's going to be a lot more enthusiasm, and I also hope that we have done a lot of things to get our candidates in place first, so we're not having a lot of these last minute people. It's going to be different because we're not coming out of COVID and coming out of a place where we were upset at our leader and that kind of thing. With my history in not-for-profit, that's all I ever did was fundraise and work with volunteers. So I can bring that experience in helping organize things. I know that we need to be better in supporting our volunteers, because you can't expect people to come out and door knock and do things and not reward them in some capacity of appreciation for their efforts. So I see it really coming up with a good volunteer plan, so that these people want to come and work for us, having our candidates ready and ready to go. And again, that involves making sure our CAs are strong. So I just see there's going to be a lot of different things and maybe a wee bit of a different approach this time around. And hopefully with the strength of our leader, we'll be a lot more organized and ready to go. And with one of us at the helm working with our CAs, it'll be even better. So thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, the last question from the predictable script here is, on a scale of 1 to 10, please rate your assessment of the relationship between the Edmonton CAs and their members and the voters. I will again start with Bobby.
Five. I'm really sad to say it. Like, really sad to say it. I'm on the VP of Communications for Edmonton Northwest. We called all of our members in September, and we asked them 5 questions. We wanted them to come to the AGM. We wanted to see where their issues were, and we found out a lot of really, really interesting things. We found out that 80% of the members in our riding support the Premier. We found out that our #1 issue wasn't some of the things that get us upset on social media, but it was, how do we pay for groceries and the cost of living? How do we cope with growth? We found out that a lot of folks didn't know necessarily why they're a member. It was a habit. They'd always been a member somewhere. They wanted to be a member with us. And the thing we heard consistently in phone call after phone call was, I have never heard from the party before where they asked my opinion. If I run for anything, I'm running to change that. That is just, if I run for anything, I'm running to change that. We have great people. We have a fantastic community. 35% of the people in this community voted for this party in the last election. We don't change that unless we behave like we know, like, trust, and respect our members. And while we value them, they're worth more to us than $10 every year in a membership fee, half of which will come back to the CA. We need to shift our entire approach in some very real ways in how we communicate with them and how we enable our boards and the folks who do show up to volunteer to talk to them and build those relationships. Because that is the thing that is going to enable us to build a future. Nobody shows up to build a future with other people unless they know that they're valued. And that's like that's it. That is the name of the game. It's more than just saying we have a party. If we want a movement and we want the transformational change and the benefits of a conservative government and our conservative policies and our conservative ideas for our children and grandchildren, we reach out and we build.
It sounds like you're going to get up here and say a repeat when you feel the same things. Again, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably say a 2 or less. I know myself, when I wanted to sit on our board before in Glenora, I had reached out and no one had ever got back to me, and I was kind of new to it, and I was floundering around a little bit going, well, I don't know, I reached out, nobody called me, don't they want me, aren't they interested? So I think that's one of the things that we'd work with the CAs on. If you get an email, respond, right? Because it's so very important. The other thing I learned in this last election was how the way our world is, right? How everybody's shy to be a conservative, like there's something wrong with it. And I know when I went to 3 people in the little neck of the woods I live in, and I said, can we put a sign? And they were like, well, I don't really want anybody to know that I'm a conservative. So what I did was I went out and I had the sign that was this big on my front lawn, because I thought, I'm going to make up for all you people that are too chicken to say that you're blue. So again, I think the approach has to change. One of the things I've even said, just, and quickly in ending, is this social media. I get it. I know lots of people are in social media, but X, I go on it, but I don't really like it, and it's kind of ugly. And one of the things I'd like to see us change is every time we put something up, it's in some position that allows everybody to start trashing the Premier. So even if you liked what her post was and you went to read the comments, you're going to read all the trolls or the NDP, right? So I would like to see us try and figure out a way that we start promoting ourselves very positively with no chance for nasty rebuttals from a keyboard warrior, because I think we need something big out there that starts to talk about our premier and all of her successes. So we have to make it so that people are proud to want to be a UCP and look forward and look for ways to get involved.
Thank you very much. We're now going to open up the mic to questions from the floor. We're going to get, how many did we say? We said 3. Can I talk us into 4 just to keep it even? And then what we'll be able to do is we'll give each of them a chance to be the first to speak and the second to speak. So that's all fair. The next one you'll answer first, if that's okay. And so I'll invite the first questioner to come to the microphone.
That's okay. Yes. Oh. Not working. Testing. Testing. Well, I'll just talk loud.
I'll repeat the question to the microphone. I'll hear you.
On July 30th, at the town hall meeting of the Calgary Lockheed ACA, the president of the association, Daryl Comic, made a statement that Ukrainian refugees from the war have come here with no screening, zero screening, and are now walking around with swastikas. Both statements are totally false and, in fact, hateful. I would like to ask you whether, number one, you would denounce such a statement. Number two, ask for the removal of Comic as president of the Calgary Lockheed CA. And third, declare that there is no room for Russian propaganda in the UCP. Thank you.
Whoa. From here? Or me?
You should,
Come on.
sorry,
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
please,
Yeah.
sorry.
Well, I think you picked the wrong person because I'm Ukrainian, so just saying. Obviously, that's not something that you'd want to say, and I don't know what our role is as a regional director to get involved at that level or whatever, but I would certainly want to find out if the constituents came to me and said, what's going on, Jill? What would you do about this? I would certainly take the proper steps to find out and get involved. Obviously, it's deplorable, and I don't certainly condone it, and I wouldn't want anybody saying that. So I guess you'd have to be some kind of investigation to get to the bottom of it, why he said it, and figure out from there, what to do. Thanks.
Okay, we will step up. We're talking about there's cords back here, and we're just both in dread that one of us will fall on the cords. So that's the first I have heard of that. And so if that were indeed true, it is deplorable. I will say that we as a party have codes of conduct for our boards, and we should, if we do not currently have a formalized process for comments that are hate speech, that would contravene our code of conduct. I just cannot imagine how that would not, and we should have a process associated with that. It should be a fair, open process, and that I would absolutely abide by the rights of that process. And I would expect that, so I can't say because I have absolutely dead first heard of it, but comments that relate our immigrant communities to performing acts of hate speech is deplorable.
Second question.
Thank you. When it comes to turning Edmonton blue, my question for you is, do you lean towards watering down the conservative message in an attempt to reach the people who have leaned to the left in the past? Or do you lean towards educating Edmontonians about the merit of conservative values?
Did we hear that?
Oh, yeah.
So I would say that when you look at the Venn diagram of where our conservative values are and where our immigrant communities sit, there's tremendous overlap, and they don't require education about our conservative values. They share them already. I genuinely believe in the population of Edmonton, one of the most diverse cities on the planet, that we don't have to change a darn thing. Those folks just need to hear from us and be invited to learn more about us because they are in agreement. I think that the path to Conservative victory in Edmonton is a confident, curious, and kind party that looks at those who have decided to build a community with us and reaches out in friendship, and that we don't need to educate them on something new. We need to give them the chance to join with us with something we already share.
Sorry, could you just say that again? Because I want to make.
No problem. When it comes to turning Edmonton blue,
Oh.
do you lean towards watering down conservative values in order to reach people who have previously voted NDP? Or do you believe in educating Edmontonians about the merits of conservative values?
Well, again, I think I would say it would depend on what it was, the issue. And I know it's hard to be when you're just sort of making a general, statement like that. I think that if it was something that needed watering down or softening, that would be the approach I would take. But I think if it was an issue that was something that was maybe not more important, but needed to be strengthened, then maybe that's the approach I would think I would take. But I would think it would have to be just dependent on really what the issue is, what the approach is. Because I find even myself, sometimes I'll get talking about conservatism and then I'll find out they're NDP and I'll be like, oh, and then I just kind of switch the course a little bit. But then if I find out they're like me, well, then we just go head on. So I just think you need to take what the issue is and then decide which is the best way to go with it.
Thank you very much. We'll go to question number 3 now.
Hi. Really nice to see you ladies. You're doing a great job. So many of the things you're saying about our communications are absolutely true. The challenge is, of course, how we all communicate together to make that better. Rob Smith, in his recent email from the board, indicated that the Edmonton Regional Communications Strategy was going to be put into place. That would include Edmonton South, Millwoods, Ellerslie, Meadows.
Ask the question.
I'm putting in context.
No.
Okay, sorry.
Please
Some
continue.
people don't know what
Sorry.
that is. Some people
Please,
don't know.
please continue.
Thank you. And South Strathcona. This is a region that is looking to develop a way of addressing some of those communication issues that are being identified. Would you support something like that? And if so, how? If not, why not?
Me?
Yes, sorry, yes, yes.
I would absolutely support something like that. The constituencies that want to get involved and have input for that is fantastic. And what can we do but learn from it? So absolutely 100%. That's something that I would support and that we should go ahead with and look forward to sharing the data. And I'm excited that that is something that could be happening. So thank you.
So yes, I absolutely am in support of a regional communications initiative. I do find, I'm just gonna, give me a second.
Yes, you keep getting lower and lower.
It's falling. So I do support a regional communications strategy and plan. I think we do need an element of data to it. And I also think that this is the point in time where we also need to work on our training as a form of communications. There's a lot of really well-intentioned folks, and we have 20 different CAs, and they are all trying to do the same job from the ground up. And one thing I genuinely want to communicate without taking away the authority or the autonomy of CAs is best practices and approaches, so that folks don't come in and they're like, I would like to volunteer, and then there's no continuity. So one of the first things I would love to see us communicate is how it is that you can come in and be successful right away. How can you have the skills and the practices and the ongoing pieces that you need to be successful? So that's the first thing I would change. And I absolutely think that a citywide communication strategy is necessary to even get started on something like that.
Thank you very much. We have one more question, but I see 4 people in line, so I'm gonna cut it off at 3 because that's even, because we've had 3 questions so far, so that'll bring it up to 6. I see we have time on there, if that's all right. If we all ask concise questions, I'm sure we can get through 3 more, so we'll cap it a little bit higher. So total of 6. So go ahead with your question, sir.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Bro, you just talk.
Oh my goodness, that's okay. That's gonna be a challenge for me, I guess. Well, thanks for coming here. That was amazing to see you there here. I just have a question about if to both of you, if Jill wins or loses, if Bobby wins or loses, are you guys willing to work with each other to advance plans for the Edmonton area? Because I see both of you have great strengths, and I think we can be a perfect match together. Thank you very much.
So now we can get like 4 more questions. We're both good.
You can get 4 questions out because I think you both said yes. Okay,
Yes.
we're gonna do 4. They ask at the same time. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Good, all fair. All you guys. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Thanks for being here. My name is Albert. I'm the past candidate from the Edmonton Magnet. My question to you guys is, in that, while I was running, I had 12 weeks to run a campaign, which is definitely not enough to turn blue. My question to you guys is, if you were put on regional directors, what are you going to do to help the CA boards put their candidates in place at least 2 to 3 years before an election, not 12 weeks, because it's impossible to take out the NDP and Edmonton.
I think it's Bobby's turn first this time.
So this is an exception year or a blue moon year to the idea that we can have candidates 2 to 3 years in advance. And the reason for that, I don't know if any of you are aware, some of you probably are. We will be going through a redistricting process based on population growth. So none of your CAs will have the same boundaries by the time we go into the next election as they do right now. That's going to have a couple of impacts, one of which is we will have to what they call refound or reconstitute our CAs to match with the new boundaries, and that process is still to be determined. However, I do believe that we have the organizational capacity province-wide to give the longest possible runway for our CAs to start recruiting. I agree that there's a tremendous amount of strength in having a candidate ready 12 months in advance. It enables them to fundraise, it enables them to get on the doors, it enables them to build teams. And I genuinely am hopeful that the process that happens completely independently of the party is completed in time, that we can make that happen, because every second counts. Absolutely.
I agree with everything she said, and also the whole idea that we are told we have to wait and we can't do it because of the redistricting. But it doesn't mean we can't look and find people. My goodness, like if somebody wanted to be run an MLA, I'm sure they must have something in their head somewhere already that we can work with, right? So I think that we need definitely to start right away. I mean, I'm not saying we have to go door knocking right away, but we can start to look for our candidates, and we need to, because Melissa, who was parachuted into Glenora from St. Albert, I believe, was like I think a month before, and she did, you know, she did really well considering, and Sarah Hoffman is the MLA, so she was really up against some stuff. But absolutely, I think that it's incumbent upon all of us, not just the CA boards, all of us, to start looking around and questioning and asking and trying to find people who would be willing to become an MLA and run. I think it's not only up to the CA boards, it's up to all of us. So if you're not sitting on a CA board, you still have some responsibility.
Next question. Thank you very much. Just talk loud. Just shout.
So I work with Max in the Freedom Calendar, and Max was up here 2 people ahead of me, and he hit the nail on the head. You 2 women about half the CAs in Edmonton are down and out.
It's the white elephant in the room, and we're not really talking. You have mentioned that things have changed. This is what I propose, right? I'm gonna vote for both of you.
You can split the duties and get even more done.
Asking one person, there's no way that you should be trying to compete against each other. Okay, you know, both of you should be let loose on Edmonton. And I'm actually gonna vote for both of you. I don't care if I spoil my ballot. Okay, because we need to change. Things need to change. Okay? But why would you want to eliminate something?
That was very kind. So in spite of the fact it wasn't a question, I appreciate your effort. I'm sure that both of you, as
Yeah,
you suggested before, will continue to work together. Last question to you, sir. Go ahead.
My name is Peter Royer. I'm the newest UCP member. Bit of context, I joined Beverly Fairview, was invited to become a member of the Vice Presidency Subcommittee Policy of Governance, Policy and Resolution. We came up with our little team of 3 with 58 resolutions. We were the number 1. Airdrie was second with a distance of 42. I look at the plenary, our name is not on any of those. Why? We left because I sent a letter, was supposed to go to Ray Strom, it went to all the committee members, and they all started writing back. I said, my first night here, this is not run according to Robert's rules. It's not run according to the handbook. The president was, point being is, out of spite, they axed all 58. I am really upset. I'm a new person. I spent morning and night working on those resolutions. I'm an naturopathic doctor. Go back. I study what's going on in the world, chemtrails, all that stuff. I know about, not vaccines, excuse me, they're gene therapy. I know about these things. I'm a doctor. They asked all of my knowledge, all of our proposals gone. I want to know if you want my help and if you want new people to stay. I would like to have some accountability for this president. Even the new board I joined, I offered to be the vice president of communications. They refused because it was 6-1 resolution because I'm not a member of the constituency. So I offered to work on a committee. They said it was an illegal resolution and they didn't even take my offer. Like what kind of, like we need people to volunteer. I'm volunteering and they asked. So I'm gonna ask you, can you please watch over these presidents and put some teeth in it? If people think they're the old boys school and think they can run it the way they want, in the defines of the handbook, those they gotta be gone. I told him point blank, I said, you are defying Premier Daniel Smith. You're going against, you got to look at these people and if they're not, if they're a boat anchor, they're worse than a boat anchor. They cut up.
I think we have our question, which is, what are you going to do to ensure fairness in the resolution submission process?
And overseeing the president.
Well, first of all, thank you for being a doctor and for being a very, very smart doctor, because I am picking up everything that you are putting down about with regard to that. Working in not-for-profit for over 30 years, volunteers, and with all due respect to every one of you, it's they can be a handful, and sometimes people become volunteers and they get a little powerful and they get a little power hungry. And we do need to make sure that there's things in place that doesn't happen. I agree. One of the hardest things that there is to do is to fire a volunteer in a not-for-profit, because you have to watch, how much money were they giving you and stuff like that. But no, just kidding. But it is was a consideration. But it is very important to watch your volunteers and that they're not getting out of hand. And I apologize to you for that. I'm on the Lenora board, and come and join us, please. We would love to have you.
I want to echo a lot of what Jill said. Like, I'm starting to feel like you guys are just being real patient because we're like second verse, same as the first. So I do want to talk just a little bit about this idea of how we hold each other accountable and how the board holds itself accountable and how we communicate that to each other. One of the things that we have is a brand new baby party in the grand scheme of things is we both don't have the constraints of 30 years or 40 years of rules and ways that we saw with the PCs where everybody had a loophole. And then once they had that loophole, you were never going to change it for anything. We also have space for us to grow and to put in writing our expectations and our accountabilities so that when we say we have a process for policy, you're not debating what that process is going to look like. You're not constantly waiting for it to come up on our website. That it's clear and it's concise and it's consistent, and that we have a process when things don't go wrong. Well, sorry, when things do go wrong, so that we can evaluate that. It's not always going to be perfect. People are going to make mistakes. And as a 5-6 year, sometimes with COVID, it seems like a millennium old party, sometimes it doesn't, but we have that opportunity. And you've brought up something that's really important. It's not always going to be perfect, but we can put in governance at that board, as well as working together with our committees and with our CAs, processes where we hold each other accountable. I think that as conservatives, when we look at rules, one of the things that really we share as a value is that they're not there to constrain us. They're there to create the agreements and the value that lets us be free. That gives us the platform to go out and make great choices and do great ideas and do great things together. And so if we're having those sorts of problems, then we have the capacity to make sure that we can solve them. And so I think that's absolutely something we need to look at.
I think we'll finish off with a round of applause for the two folks who came out tonight. I can say from experience, and I know the other board members here can say from experience as well, that being on the board is a giant pain in the ass. There's tons of work to do, and everyone gets your phone number about 35 seconds into it, and they're calling you. And so whichever one of you wins, I appreciate the effort you're going to put into it. We now have closing remarks from both candidates. I'll start with Bobby because I looked at her first. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. I couldn't tell who you were looking at.
So I had closing remarks, and then Joe just shifted them ever so slightly about the giant pain in the ass portion of this. I'm still running. But I want to talk about that just a little bit because I want you guys to know I'm not going to lie to you about it. I know it's going to be between 50, 75, maybe even 80 meetings a year. I know my phone's going to go off, and I know that while I am genuinely here to offer myself up as an act of service and to go create good things with you and build a movement and build a winning party with you, I promise you that if my children who are now young adults call me, y'all, that phone is going to get turned off. I believe in family, I believe in faith, and I believe in community, and I will absolutely be there with my best ideas to serve you. But my hard boundary, even though they're growing up and they assure me that, they got this. If they call me, you guys lose. And I say that with absolute due respect. In the future, win or lose, I will work with Joe. I will stay. I don't know, Wayne. If I win and it's as bad as Joe says, I might come off of the CAs I sit on. There's only so many hours in the day. But I'm in it to win it for the party in terms of an act of creating a movement that I am proud to leave my family, my children, my community, and my province. I want to see us be strong and free.
I agree. It's going to be difficult. I actually said to some of my friends, I said, I feel this sort of peace at this because I got to know Bobby, and I've said if she wins, she's going to be amazing. And if I win, I'm going to be amazing. So what are we going to do? I don't know. But in closing, so the job of the regional director, according to what the UCP says it is to work with the executive director to establish active CAs in every constituency, to ensure the CAs adhere to UCP governance. Okay. To work with the executive director to coordinate and share information and facilitate communications to the CAs. I think that's everything that we've been talking about tonight, what we would do. And of course, to attend as many of the meetings and the AGMs as we possibly can. Being that I'm retired and being that what I did for 30 years was all of the above, it makes perfect sense for me. And I understand that, you know, there is no successful charity without a successful board. And that was one of the things I had to learn. I ran a board for 10 years as executive director, and I couldn't do it without my board members. So I know how important board members are. But at the same time, that applies to the CA boards and to the UCP board, right? We need both of those to be successful. And so that's what I will work at doing. I will work at that job description to work to establish the CAs, to get to know them, to get to know their challenges and their strength, and to get as many possible amazing candidates in Edmonton as we can. I will do that with the end goal to turn Edmonton as blue as we possibly can and to keep Alberta strong and free. So thank you and God bless. And I've got some little brochures here on myself, about myself, if you guys want some at the end. And thank you so much for coming out tonight. It was really nice to see everybody here. I appreciate it.
I want to make a comment on what Bobby said, thinking about even my CA. To me, there's only one communication strategy. It doesn't matter where it's developed. We can all share the same success. I want to remind everybody, we have a Christmas party this year on the 23rd of November at the Chateau Lacombe. Tickets are on sale. Look in the events section of the calendar, if you would. And let's make it a success. We had 400 plus people last year. It is not a fundraiser, it is a friend raiser. So bring a friend who's not a conservative and convince them that we're not all the devils in the woods.
What are we at for ticket sales right now?
To be honest, I haven't been paying attention for the last week because I've been trying to focus on this. So I mentioned earlier about the questions to the other people. I'm going to send them all to you, and I will ask you to send questions in. And we will send 6 questions to each of the candidates that weren't able to come today. If that will serve your purposes. Hands up. Okay. I will send you an email with my address. Okay. Most of you probably have it already because I've written you several times in the course of this process, right? So if you don't, come and see me later, I'll give it to you, but I will email everybody and ask you, send you the questions and ask you for questions. I guess that's it for the evening, folks. I'm sorry that we had some no-shows, but that's life.
Oh yeah, I know.